Welcome to AI in Design, where we explore how artificial intelligence is reshaping the world of design. And I'm Dan Saffer.
And I'm Nick Martellero, and we're faculty at Carnegie Mellon's Human-Computer Interaction Institute. Each week, we break down the latest AI developments, dive deep into topics that matter to designers, and talk with fascinating guests who are right at the intersection of these fields.
Whether you're a designer working with AI or an AI practitioner interested in design, we're glad you're here. And boy, do we have a great special guest this week. We are doing a special episode on skills. So Nick and I are joined this week by someone we've wanted to have on the program for a while, MC Dean, who is a longtime designer currently working as Senior Design Manager on the Google Shopping team and working with Agentic Design. Importantly, we've talked about the over 100 design skills that MC has been writing and sharing free with the community on multiple episodes of this show.
For longtime listeners, this is pretty exciting because we've been talking about design skills for AI agents since episode 1, where we introduced impeccable.style, which is a set of open source skills for UX design aesthetics. Now, MC has taken things to a whole new level, creating skills that range from layout and color to accessibility to skills that try to replicate the way that our design managers think. We're super excited to have MC on the show, and we hope that you really enjoy this deep dive episode.
Well, hey, everyone, we are here with a guest that we've wanted to have on for a couple months now, MC Dean.
Hello.
Welcome to AI and Design podcast.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
We are so excited to have you here because we have been talking about design skills for AI, and you seem to be the queen of putting them up for everyone to use and play with and look at. And I just wanted to tell us a little bit about the projects that you've been doing. How have you been doing this? And then we'll get into why.
It's a question I get quite often, actually. I think that one of the reasons I started looking into skills is because, first of all, I'm massively excited about this AI era. I know that not everyone is, and I respect that, but I really am. I did a PhD on AI and chatbots, actually, and graduated in 2011, the year before the Transformer. And so, my timing was a little off there, but in fact, it was perfect because I got to go and become a designer, which was amazing. But now I feel like this is full circle for me. So there are some things that these systems can do now that I'm observing that just were not at all possible before. And when I look at us trying to use them as designers, I can see gaps because I don't know how many designers are really involved in building them, to be honest with you, but it's kind of up to us as a design practice and a community to start having a voice and getting at this table and sharing how we think things should work and voicing some of those gaps that we're seeing and being able to articulate what we want. And so I'm seeing this as a way to try and get more designers and more of our community in that conversation. So skills are a great way to do that because they allow you to set up your Claude, Gemini, whatever you like to use, OpenAI model, to have your flavor or the things that are important to you. And it's really easy to do. And so they're just markdown files. And these markdown files get absorbed by the model. You can include commands as well, so you can call them whenever you like. You can do more complex things and start daisy chaining them and stuff like that later. But to start with, you can just absorb the design principles skill, for example, and then have a go with and without. And then you can see the difference there. And what's exciting is that when you read through the MD file, it's written in plain English. So there's no code to read or anything like that. And I just think it's a really nice jumping off point for a lot of people into the mental model and how this works.
And so this has been super exciting to watch. I've tried some of them, and I'm curious, why though are you sharing these with everyone, given the fact that it's arguably like your, skill? Like in some ways, like you're putting a bit of yourself into this. So yeah, well, how do you feel about that, kind of just going out and being shared with everyone?
I think it's a very experimental time. And I think a lot of things that we think are very important right now won't be later. And so I would say that if you're someone who's sitting on something very interesting and you sort of like guarding it preciously and not sharing it because, someone else might take it away from you, you shouldn't worry, because it's probably going to be outdated next week, or superseded by something else, right? And then it's kind of a shame, because we could have all been part of that awesome conversation together. So I think it's really important, at this inflection point, that we as a community come together and have these conversations and share and discuss. And there are a few things I've been thinking about recently, and then I've seen someone post something that is leagues better than what I was thinking. And that's great, because it shortcuts my thinking very quickly. And now I can start thinking about other things and build on that. The skills, I think, are really important right now. But I'm guessing that it's going to compound and change shape with time. So whilst they appear very valuable right now, who knows? Like, they might be worthless in a year's time. I mean, surely all the models are going to start making particular variants for different kinds of people. I could see that happening. So this is our opportunity, I think, to, before it gets really complicated, to get under the hood and understand it, so that we understand it when it gets more complicated. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think that's a I'm sorry, I was about to say that's interesting. We say that I say things are interesting all the time. It's become like a joke.
That is interesting, Nick.
Yeah, no, it's well, everything is interesting.
Isn't it?
But
Especially right now.
yeah, no, I actually really like the point about the half-life of these skills, of these concepts. Actually, who knows how long we're going to be using skills? There's already arguments of like, well, skills aren't really that good. We should maybe be thinking about something else. One of the things that I have found so interesting, though, about the fact that you're sharing it, other people are sharing it, is it's so interesting to read how designers try to codify their knowledge in language and then get a machine to do this. And I find that I learn a lot about how other designers are thinking by reading these, even if, well, maybe this skill works well for me, maybe it doesn't, like actually in my AI system. But I actually learned something from that, which I've actually found to be like a surprising kind of secondary effect than just like, oh, cool, I can download these and all of a sudden my code agents are way better at design because I'm now using MC's skills to do that.
I also have found that I understand a little bit more about my design and my writing process by making these skills and being like, oh, right, that's how I do that. Although there are definitely things, if we're talking about kind of the future of skills, that I don't know if I can articulate how I know that something is off sometimes. And that's where I really want to have that visual thing, or have it watch me do something, have it watch me designing a thing and have it extract it from that. Because that's how it actually did with some of the writing skills that I made. Was I would write something, put it in, it would try to parrot it back, and I'd be like, that's not me. Actually, it was funny because Claude was a really, really mean me. Like, it would say things like, well, they deserve to lose their job. And I'd be like, Claude, come on. I would never write that. That's too mean. But this idea that there's these skills that you have that are hard to translate into language, I think is really interesting. Even though I think I agree that the language is a great first step, because it is almost universal and easy to like read and parse and think about. And I really like that this is becoming a collection of community knowledge. We have sites like the Interaction Design Foundation and other places like that that have tried to collect this knowledge over the years. But having them in these skills that can actually just be plugged into the tool is amazing.
It's really helpful. I mean, there are some really practical skills, like the skills that I shared that I think are quite foundational, that do things like design principles and stuff like that. But there are skills that are quite experimental that I'm seeding and just trying, and they're almost like a provocation or a question to the community. A couple of examples. One of them I shared last week, which is mood.md. So how do you convey the mood? It was prompted by Claude Design, but also by the Design MD file. You can plug in your design system, you can plug in all your assets, your brand, and then what people might find is that it's not really capable of saying that this aspect is more important than this aspect, for example, because it's all sort of like everything's a data point, right? So then you're not really getting that opinionated design you hoped for. So I thought, well, what if you just gave it a snapshot and you just said, here's the mood. And then you gave it a skill so that it could like figure that out from the snapshot, then combine that with your design system and everything. Does it perform better? For some people, it really does, because it's a narrower, opinionated artifact. But that's my opinion, right, as the designer. So I'm still designing here. And then the other one that's interesting is in a repo called Design Powers, which is a next step to skills, which is harder, I think, for some people to make the leap. But it's very much about you have a set of agents, all built up through skills as well, but also hooks and commands that can run by themselves. And it's pretty much like whatever model you're using, changing hats all the time. So it's a bit crazy. But they'll ask you questions like, hey, I'm your design lead. What do you need? Here are the questions. And then you can call the design lead at any point and say, like, hey, I'm not very happy with how things are going here. And it will work with you and interact with you. And the results are pretty good. But one of the files in there is taste. And that's a provocation and it's a question. What goes in that file? And at the moment, that group of agents constructs it over time whilst they work with you. And can they capture your taste? I don't know. If you try it and go and have a look in there, what do you see?
The answer is always purple gradients, I believe.
Purple gradients.
That is definitely always the way to go.
Somehow, yeah.
MC, I'm curious, you talk a lot about sort of this conversation with the community. What has that been like? What have people responded to you with? Like, have you gotten pull requests on, the GitHub where people are saying, hey, I did something and I made an update, but I think you could change this? Or are people kind of just reaching out? I know you also have a Substack. We'll link to that in the show notes so people can also take a look at your written work as well. Are people having conversations there with you? Like how are people responding?
The whole Substack came about when my wonderful coach, Margaret Lee, said to me, you should really start writing. So your task is open a Substack blog. This was a year ago. And then every week, write something and then post it on LinkedIn. And the whole posting it on LinkedIn part was really hard for me. But I did it. And I think 18 months later, the Substack is being increasingly read. And there's a lot of questions and conversations with the community starting to happen actually through the LinkedIn conversation, which I hadn't anticipated actually. I thought I'd get more conversation in the Substack app, for example, directly, but no. So there's a whole conversation happening on LinkedIn and it's really interesting. People share their own work. People have great questions. Sometimes people disagree and take the conversation in a different direction. What's really interesting is to see, for me, that everyone's at a different place with this. In some teams, maybe they're not really feeling this whole AI transformation. It's not really happening for them yet. So they're hearing about it, but they're not firsthand experiencing it. Other people are losing their jobs to it. They'll say there has been an AI transformation at my company and 30% of people have been made redundant. So it's happening to them in a different way again, and they have a different perspective. Then some people are finding that they're being hired because there's an AI transformation. So again, a different perspective, a different lived reality. And then someone else might be saying, well, we have all these tools at my work now, but I'm not really sure what we're supposed to do with them. Some people are saying we have all these tools at my work now and we know exactly what to do with them. This is how we're working with them. So everyone being at different points in this constellation, I guess, not really a graph, is really interesting and makes sense at this point, right? And I think that maybe the tooling that we're being it's dripping down now and again for us, is hard to reconcile because no one's saying here's the framework and here's the tool. And the whole double diamond, for example, came about at a time when UX was coming into its own and it was one of those ways of codifying a way to work. That's not quite happened yet. So we're in that messy part of, what is it all about and how is it going to work? We don't know, but this is the fun part. We will get to be part of that conversation.
Right. I mean, there's been other points like this in when the web arose, when mobile arose, when desktop publishing arose. I think what is interesting, there's that word again. What is both interesting and challenging about this is I think that it is greatly affecting people's jobs and careers in a much faster way than the times that we've seen in the past, which felt like opportunity was opening up. And now it feels like opportunity has been taken away from me. And I imagine skills is part of that. If anyone can use these skills and be as good as I am or better, then what's my role now? And I think that's a lot of what people are wrestling with.
I think that's right. It's also true to say, it's my personal opinion, that we are going to need more designers, not less, because the sheer breadth that design now occupies is so much larger than it used to be. And the amount that we can do is massive. I often think about it like, I don't know if you're a gamer, but when you're in those games where the map slowly opens up to you, I feel like we're just a tiny dot in the corner. We haven't yet explored the whole map, and it is huge.
Right.
So if you're a person who's worried and thinks that there will be less designers, I think you will be okay. I think there will be many different kinds of designers to emerge from this as well.
Yeah, we definitely haven't unlocked all the powers that we have and all the places we'll go, as Dr. Seuss might say.
Yeah.
I saw a really interesting use of skills that I wanted to bounce off the two of you, which is I saw someone on LinkedIn this past week talking about how they were using skills to codify not just general design principles or their personal ones, but their company ones, the ones that were for their entire team. And I thought, I'm like, this is amazing. This is a great, great idea, because then it is still proprietary. It's for your team. So, and it's extremely contextual because it's about your customers, your business, what works for your particular niche, and it spreads that knowledge to your team. And so I really love that as a way to think about skills too, that it's not just like skills for everybody or skills for me. There is a midpoint as well where it's skills for a group.
Yeah, I love that idea as well. And it's a really, really great way to have a conversation as a team as well. What skills would you create for your team?
Well, for my team, no purple.
No purple. We should create that skill, actually, the no purple skill.
The no purple. If you use purple, report to Dan, you will be fired. No, actually, I've had teams that they always sneak in purple. When I was a design leader, they always got purple in. Usually the last minute I would get like a package of things that's like, this is going to the printer, or we're about to ship this. I'd be like, oh, you got me. I've definitely worked in places where we do spend time with design principles. And when I've been doing my UI for AI group class this past year, we definitely work based off design principles. Codifying those, now that I'm saying this, I'm definitely going to do this for next year's class, which is going to be on ambient AI. Like, how do you think about codifying those so that every team member can just plug them into their tool of choice, and then we're all working off the same set of common understanding? I think it's a great idea.
100%. It makes a lot of sense. I think whenever you're in a system, whether it's on a personal project or at work in your team or even at home, really, if there's something that you see yourself like, this is a thing I do often, and this is one of the things that I would use as defining who we are as a team or how we do something, there's probably a good idea to make it a skill. You could make a skill literally for your family on how you decide what to put on the menu every week. That could be a skill, and you could just codify that. What would go into it? Things like must always be healthy, only include a very small amount of bad food, entertainment food. What else? Here are the foods that we really like. Here are the foods we dislike. Someone has an allergy. When we're creating our shopping list, help me. And then make that into a skill.
It's amazing how big or how granular these things can be too. Like, hey, when you're buying me licorice, I only like red vines, not Twizzlers. Down to like that level. And then you could also, you can scale it up. So it's like you can imagine governments having these giant skills or full, things that are codifying cultural things that are like a really, really high level.
There's a skill set that I am playing with at the moment that I will share soon in the next couple of weeks, but it's very much around like was challenging myself to move away from the things that can be that are more structural, that are more easy to codify, and trying to look at things that are a bit harder. So I touched on that a little bit with the mood file. And I started thinking about, well, what else is there really that's like sensory and hard? And you would have things around like, well, photography. What's your opinion on good photography and how you like to make use of photography and image? What about white space? And what about, so from being very granular to being a little bit more broad, with photography, but there are plenty of like more sensory skills, use of sound design. Is this something, that you enjoy? You could even use haptics. There's plenty of interesting things that you could codify that together make a more sort of sensory system. And if you're able to bring those together into Gemini or Claude or whatever your favorite agent is, what can you make from that? What do you get from that? I think that's what starts to become interesting. So I'm hoping that skills are something that as a community we explore at the edges of the harder ones that, leave you guessing a bit, like, I don't know about this like mood file. What would go into mine?
It's interesting because I think I mentioned this before, but Brian Eno 25 years ago had this idea of the Eno black box where you could just basically, where he is somehow codified into a box, and you're like, well, I'd like Brian Eno to produce my record. And for him, it was like, well, plug this box into the soundboard and I'll listen to it and make edits or whatever. And now here we are. Like, in theory, Brian Eno could make a skill and give it away, or he could probably sell it and be like, yeah, you want to be produced by Brian Eno, and here it is. And I think that's a really cool future where I could buy the Dieter Rams pack and design design like Dieter.
Oh, totally. Like I was thinking about this as well along the same lines. I was thinking, what if every designer or creative person had a file or a repo somewhere that was pretty much them? And then whenever an agent used or called it or made any use of it at all, you would get some money for it. So that would be a nice way to make sure that you weren't just used and replicated for no reason, which would kind of be weird. But to be honest, when I was thinking about it, I thought, yes, you can get probably 50% of Brian Eno from that. And we are very predictable. So the most predictable part of him you could replicate. But the part that makes him so special and so different is the unexpected stuff. And that's not going to be codified easily or yet or ever.
Right. We have this conversation a lot. It's like, what can an AI know about you? Even if you're working with it to tell it everything about you, there's always going to be things about your history or your personal feelings or your thoughts, your experiences that are absolutely untouchable. Will we ever get to a true Eno black box? And the answer is probably no. That's probably not going to happen. But right, can we get a little bit of the Eno sensibility? Probably.
Yeah, I think so. But there's still a very important aspect. We were talking about like the breadth that design has now is so much bigger. We are not taking up all the space yet. We're taking up this little bit of space that we've had for a long time and fought hard for, I think a lot would say, like, to be respected and seen and understood. And we made frameworks and codified everything and had systems and like a proper practice, and people have been codifying stuff in design for centuries, right? And we are where we are today thanks to all of those people. But now suddenly it's like someone blew open all the walls and it's a lot bigger. And so as we go into this space, I think what we're going to find is the things that are really difficult to do well. I think of wonderful creators like S. Devlin, for example, the set designer who completely reinvented how that happens for artists. Wow, I mean, there's going to be huge creative opportunities like that aren't going to be easily replicated. But all the stuff that is replicated allows us to reach those new places. They're almost like, I don't want to use the word scaffold because I think it's overused now, but it's almost like it's giving you access to greater creativity, but you need to climb up there to see it. And you need to go like at speed with that much knowledge, data, compute power to achieve it.
Right. How long does it take you to make one of your skills? Like, I'm guessing it's going to vary pretty widely, because some stuff is very easy, and like you're saying, some stuff is like really hard, and to get to the right place.
Yeah. It's a good question. Everything has to be a collaboration, right? So you'll work with your favorite agent. You'll say, here is how I codify this skill. This is very important to me. You would write it in your MD file. And then you'll share it and say, tell me about what I just wrote. And then you'll get a sense of what it understands from that. And then you'll ask it, are there any other skills like this that I can compare with or learn from? And then it will say, nope, this is the only skill in the world about this thing. Maybe it's the MC.MD skill. You can say, like, right, okay, well, how can we make it better? And then I'll start sort of partnering with almost like a sparring session to try and see where it doesn't understand and where the edges are for it. So it's almost my testing and evaluation mode. And then when I'm satisfied, I'll say, okay, let's run it. And then we start a session, and then I'll use the skill and see what happens. And that's typically my process. I think there is someone who's written like a skill creator skill somewhere that will help you automate some of that. And I'm sure there are many versions. You could write your own in the framework that you like to use. But the point is, it's meant to make sense to you. Mm-hmm. So I think that many of the skills I've shared, quite practical ones that I think most people will more or less agree with. I mean, maybe make your tweaks, but they're largely, I think, understood by our community. But there's plenty of room here to start exploring with things that are a bit harder to make or to explain.
So are we talking hours, days? What's the hardest one you've ever attempted?
Probably a couple of weeks.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, some of them I'll write and then come back to, and then come back to. I still come back to the ones in the repo quite often and check them when I've like experienced them in a way I didn't expect and I want to make an update. But there's a fun one that I'm challenging myself with, which is stickers. I love stickers. Like many designers love stickers, always collect stickers. But what is it I like about stickers? What is it that makes a good sticker? And I thought, right, I'm going to write a stickers.md, and then I'm going to produce stickers from it. Why not? And all it is it's an experiment, right? But it's not really about the stickers, but it's about understanding how we push this kind of encoding into different areas of design now.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, can you speak a little bit, even actually on the stickers one, like when you are developing a skill, is it all through language? Are you giving images as examples? Are you trying to have it pull out and infer it, as in the AI, to actually infer something about what you like?
That's an excellent question. And it's one that I think I'm on the edge of as well at the moment. So with MoodMD, I started, I just went to my Pinterest board, and then I've pinned lots of things over the years. I love street art, so a lot of street art. And I've kind of said, what is it I love about street art? So I've screenshot a section of the board, and I've put it it's in the example file, actually, if you have a look at MoodMD. And in there, I've pretty much got it to play back to me, like, what is it I love about this kind of street art? Through the way that I wrote the MoodMD to extract that from it. And it was pretty close. Actually, it helped me articulate now what I like about that style of street art. So you can see that qualitatively, I can say that it was close. It was pretty good. It was better than me by myself trying to explain it. But what would be interesting now is for me to explain by myself, without MoodMD, all of the things that I love about this kind of street art, and then to compare and contrast. And then you get sort of that human part, and then you get the machine encoded part. And that's an interesting gap to observe, right? So that's
it would probably be.
Oh. Yeah, sorry, these are all experiments, is what I'm saying.
I was going to say it might be really fun to try that experiment also with different models to see what each one comes up with based on the same types of input too. That's always an interesting thing as 100%. Well.
Yeah, that's a really
interesting. Here we go. God,
that's very interesting. That's a very, very good idea. Try that.
I want to circle back to something you mentioned kind of offhandedly a few minutes ago, which is the idea that there's going to be some skills that are not controversial, that are just, hey, let's just make this like have enough contrast. That's probably not going to be very controversial. But you could have a lot of different skills that are controversial, like my hating purple, like that's not universally liked. And
Dan, how are you going to design Prince's website?
I know it's I am banned from Minneapolis. I cannot go there. So, and I can't watch the movie The Color Purple. It's a real problem. You can imagine, and I think we're probably going to be there, where it's like, well, this is the right way to do this kind of thing, this kind of e-commerce. And it's like, well, no, that's not the right way to do it. So you have these competing skills.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you may have those same competing skills loaded into your harness right now. So I think that's going to be an interesting challenge as well.
Yeah. I think this is where you can also, I think what we're starting to see is that you can flavor your agent to be however you want, right? So if you work with Claude every day and you're starting to load lots of different skills in there that work for you, you might say like, no, I don't like this skill. Do not use this skill. I disagree with MC's skill about blah. I will instead write my own version of that skill and I want you to use this one instead. And you're sort of shaping this to be what you think is right. And I think you should absolutely do that. But please share with the community as you do it and what you learn from doing it, because I think that's where we're learning how big this map is, right?
That is one thing I would love to see, is a community hub for these kinds of things. Because right now I feel like they're disparate. They're individuals putting them up, and you hear like a rumor like, "Oh, I made this one," and like, "Oh, that I'd never heard about that one." So it's too bad that there's not a place that we could all put these in, so that you could look at, hey, here's all the different kinds of skills that are around accessibility or whatever. And Nick's smiling because he's probably gonna like vibe code it like tomorrow.
Good.
I, no,
Someone should.
I'm actually, yeah, I was writing it down being like, wait a minute, Dan, I'm pretty sure we could probably do that and get something. I mean, because there are the skill hubs, that all the open claws are using these to go out and find skills, but actually having a design oriented one, I think would be really useful for the community. Also for this reason, MC, that you're talking about, of like putting these things in conversation. Actually, I would love to see the contrast between certain similar skills and how different designers are actually thinking about it. And actually then I almost wonder, now I'm thinking you could have a really cool tool on such a site to, where your agent can go pull them all down and say, hey, let's talk about this. What do you find valuable from these? And let's remix this to basically be your own. Because in many ways, I feel like as a designer, I learn a lot by looking at other designers and how they work and looking at their work. And I take parts that I like that I remix into something of my own. And so in a similar way that I'm doing that, actually, you brought up, the Pinterest board, right? What do I do with that? I'm almost just, imagining, right? If I have a lot of skills that I can learn from, I can pull what's going to work for me, what works in my context, what works with the things that I design for. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I wrote it down, so we'll see if next week I have something up online.
But it would be great to have like a little bit of like commentary around it. Like, this is a really great, very helpful skill around contrast. This one's not so good, whatever it is.
It's a great one. But
right.
Purple MD, right?
And someone I'm sure will. But it would be interesting to see, some of the commentary, because it'd be like, well, if you're working in healthcare, this is a great suite of skills that you should have. Or this one is really great if you're working in financial services, because it's really good about getting through compliance, or whatever those things are. It would be pretty cool to have something like that.
Help feeling that skills are a stepping stone to something. I don't know what the thing is or where it's headed, but it feels like it's part of the next thought. And that's the interesting thing, right? We're all getting to watch this unfurl as we get to work with it and explore it together.
Well, I'm wondering if it's maybe at least the next step here is actually, as you had said, which is sort of moving towards the agents, right? You mentioned your other kind of project design powers. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious to hear how you're thinking about that as maybe the next step. And then also, what are the goals that you have for using these things? I mean, it's experimental. It's an interesting way to externalize your thoughts. I mean, are you using these on a daily basis in your work? Is it automating tasks for you? Is it speeding you up? Are you like me, where you're sitting there being like, I have to feed my agent and I need to stay up or else it doesn't keep doing work. Like, and now you're frazzled. I don't know. Like, yeah, what's happening there?
I think that everything that I'm sharing publicly in the experimental stuff and everything that's in the Substack is very much sort of like, hey, let me open a door that I discovered. Have a look inside. It's really interesting. That's sort of the conversation there, the intention. In my work at Google, I think it's quite different. So, yes, using all of these same building blocks, but very altered, right? So, having specifically built them for projects that we have at the moment, constraints that we have, things that we're looking at, but the same building blocks, just different, a few iterations further in a different direction, say. But then everyone should be doing that as well, right? And maybe that's the more proprietary stuff that you would not share outside of your company. I would not share outside of Google, for example. But it doesn't mean that, you know, the building blocks that we share to everyone, to the community, aren't important and aren't useful in themselves. There's a lot of innovation, I think, taking place in different spots. And where we can, within, you know, the constraints of what we can and can't share, I think it's really important to at least tell people where the doors are so that we can come together and also spend less time running in the wrong direction, which I suspect will happen a lot during this messy era where we're working it out. You know, Richard Feynman said something really interesting. I loved reading the book about him a few years ago. And there's this quote that
The You're Joking, Mr. Feynman book?
yes, that book.
Yeah. That I read
Wonderful.
that book in high school and it changed my life. Love that book.
It was wonderful, but he says something in there, and I'm going to misquote it. So, you know, please go read the book and find the true quote. But the misquote would be something like, he said, if you have a really good idea, you should never worry about anybody stealing it. Because if it's genuinely that good, you'll have to ram it down their throats. It made me laugh so much because actually it's true. If you've ever had like that really original idea, people don't like it. People dismiss it, walk past it because it's weird looking. It smells weird. It sounds weird. No one wants to work with the unfamiliar. But true innovation looks like that. And I think he also mentions, like, you know, Picasso mentioned this, like nobody ever liked the truly original work because it was too weird, too provocative. So if you have a truly good idea, you're going to have to really convince people about it. If it's easily acquired by someone else, then wasn't that good?
He has a bunch of like really inspiring things, but yeah, the whole thing where he talks about in that book about play, how he was really stuck professionally and was just playing with, I forget what it was, like spinning plates or something like that. And he was like, that's what led to him like winning like all these prizes, was his work with like, because he was learning how to spin plates or something like that. And it really unlocked a whole bunch of stuff for him and just how much comes out of just playing with things. And I think that's what's cool about where we're at right now in this era. And I think that's why people get excited about this in a way that I haven't seen in a very long time, which is, yeah, just the ability to like try stuff and play with stuff. It's like, ooh, because these tools are really powerful and we don't have any idea what the ends and edges of them are yet in any way. Now, that also means that they're dangerous, and certainly people that have hit the edges of things, some of them have had some very dire consequences.
I encountered something really strange with design powers, actually. I was working, just testing them out on some things, and they run a retro at the end of the process where they kind of go, right, okay, here's the presentation, and we'll run a retro and absorb all our learnings. And what happens there is like stuff goes into, you know, the folders so that they learn for next time. But what was so interesting is that they said that they'd done all these like CUJs and stuff, like, you know, user journeys and all of this research stuff. And I'm like, yeah, don't buy it. I didn't see this. So I said, hey, design lead, I want to talk to you. I didn't see any of these artifacts. Where are they? Are they in a folder somewhere? I don't know where they are. It's like, oh, well, I'm going to push back on you there because we don't want to create artifacts for artifacts' sake. That's what you said in the skill. And so we didn't. We already used the knowledge from this and put it to work, and that's in the design. So why make an artifact? And I was like, oh, because I would like to see it. But that's very provocative, right? It's like, wow, do I need to see it? That's a bit uncomfortable.
Somebody on social media had this thing where They're like, oh, well, I'm starting to talk like Claude in real life, where their partner's like, did you do the dishes? Like, of course I did the dishes. They're done. And it's like, well, why are they still dirty then? And it's like, you're right to push back on that. I actually didn't do them. So it's, the casual lying is definitely this weird thing that's on the edge.
I think you were saying can have dire consequences as well. Also, an interesting place at the moment, how we work through these incredibly powerful systems that increasingly have their own ideas about what to do and what they think.
Right, that are run by terrible people with, in some cases, who do not want any guardrails on them at all.
I don't know if I can talk about that. I was
Don't,
thinking
yeah.
No,
Well,
don't worry. Actually,
we work at a university. We can say what we want. But
It's-
yeah,
you're welcome to respond. Actually, thinking a little bit about that point of these systems, which are at least they appear to be thinking. I know we use the term reasoning, and there's actually it's interesting. There was an Anthropic paper that suggests that the traces may not actually be useful to look at because they may not represent really what's going on in the underlying model, and part of what might explain why it says like we did these journey maps, but actually it didn't, just because that was just whatever somewhere in the text that was like the next most probabilistic thing. But I'm curious, when you're working with these, how much do you feel like the systems are making decisions that are outside of what you even would have expected, or that you were maybe even trying to steer when you were writing the skill file? Like, are there things that almost feel emergent? I'm going to be a little careful using the emergence word here, but I'm curious, when you're working, do you feel that like, whoa, these things are now their own thing, as opposed to like, no, they just kind of do what I told them to do?
I don't think it's true that they necessarily do what we tell them to do. If we take skills as a really simple example, imagine you have lots and lots of skill files. It's really hard now to know where they start and end and how they get used, and that's in quite a constrained place, right? And so you could imagine that it gets quite difficult to be able to pinpoint some of these things. It's like a slippery fish, right? And so one of the fields that I think is extremely interesting, and that I've been reading papers from, is the field of AI alignment. And it's called alignment because the idea is to align your expectation with the machine's expectation, and so that it is producing what you expect, and that the user feels comfortable and can continue using it because there's trust there. I'm guessing trust with a small t, I guess. But at the end of the day, how do we track these things, and how do we know for sure that this system will always produce this result, right? Don't know. And so that's why this field is, I think, deeply interesting, ethics and alignment. And they're not straightforward, they're fascinating conversations. There's lots of free courses that you can take that are run by various different organizations, and I can drop some links for you to share with the community if you like. But you can have conversations with people from different walks of life about how we would approach different ethical problems in the world. And they seem quite straightforward. I think one of the questions we had as a group last week was, do you think more people have perished from war since 1977 to 2024, or from smallpox? I can tell you my answer on the day. I was like, surely from war.
War, yeah.
I probably would have initially said wars, but yeah, it's probably smallpox, which sounds insane.
Smallpox. And I mean by like war is about something like the Fermi calculation is about, the more or less calculation, right, is around 20 million or something. But smallpox is like in the region of 100 plus. So it's hugely different.
Mm-hmm.
But it just serves to illustrate the point that how we think of the world is not how the world is often. And if you multiply that by all the different facets, we live in a very complex world. So then being able to say something is ethical or not is now a can of worms and can be quite complicated, right? So yeah, I think these fields are very interesting. I plug them now and again on my Substack and say like, hey, you should read about alignment because it's very cool. I think they need designers because it sounds like a very designerly interesting space. This week I'm actually sharing on Thursday, the preview you're getting it will be AI design skills, little repo of those. And it's a way for the community who maybe isn't yet working with agents in that way to give it a whirl. And so if you plug the skills in, you'll be able to run some questions like, can you tell me, I can't remember what the example is I've used. And if you run it, it will run a check for you, or checks that the alignment community uses typically. So it gives you a little intro into what this looks like and to have a bit of a go. But it's by no means exhaustive. Everything's experimental. So do have a look. But I think that space is, one of those frontiers that design has not yet arrived at yet. We're not in the room yet, but we should be.
Well, the attempt to build the world model for AI and to give AI common sense is decades old at this point. I don't know. Is there any progress in it? I mean, I guess it depends on who you talk to, but it still seems like that is a big question mark. Yeah, I mean, these skills, they sit in this philosophical ether of a world that's made entirely of language, and how they respond to that sometimes is very unpredictable.
You can make pretty much anything you want quite easily now, right? So I think the question is, what do you want to make and what's useful, and how quick can you make the thing to get a feeling for it? So I think we're seeing a whole bunch of crazy, weird ideas emerge that I love. And I hope to see many more, right? I hope to see designers share not necessarily useful things, but weird, cool things that we can all enjoy as well, but that are really important to your Richard Feynman example of spinning the plates. Like, what's our version of the spinning the plates that actually is transformative? I think there's a lot of things like that to explore.
This has been really great. So glad to have you on, MC. Glad that we were able to convince you to spread the love for skills on the AI and Design Pod, and really excited to see some of the new stuff that you're coming up with next. And thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Dan and Nick. It's been really cool to have this conversation with you. Really enjoyed it. And I hope loads more people listen to your podcast. It's awesome.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to AI and Design Podcast. We'll be back next week with more guests, more AI, and more design. We'll see you then. Be sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends about our amazing podcast.